Well, hi, and welcome to another session of Uncommon Knowledge for Seniors. Today we have Mike Dwyer. Mike Dwyer has a company called Emplana Career. And in essence, what he does is he helps seniors find that next step after they've retired and exploring those possibilities. And Mike's going to tell us about that today. And Mike, thank you so much for being here. This is such a unique service you offer to folks. And um, how'd you get started in this whole thing?
Well, Jim, I think this one's going to sound very familiar to you. Once you have some gray hair, how many times has someone said to you, "Would you take a look at my resume?" So, about 15 years ago, that happened with a former client and friend who is a middle manager in banking. And for some reason, this now it's up to about 15 years ago, something new happened. When I was looking at this person's resume, I started to think, you're going for one more job before you retire. Do you want to reach for a more executive position, or do you want to consolidate for a more line professional one? Either could make sense, but what a great conversation. The second thing that happened to me this particular time, that for whatever reason hadn't happened before, I found myself saying, geez, if you added this or that skill, you could actually reemerge as something perhaps a little more interesting or a little easier to find a role. So that, and having come out of both Ernst and Young and Deloitte consulting, what do consultants do? They have frameworks to help assess this. You decide what your future state's supposed to be. Okay, now we understand the gap and let's get at it. So once this happened to me these 15 years ago or so, that I said, we want to look at resumes not as static. But when you look at a resume, you're saying to yourself, could the person reach up? Could the person consolidate at more of a line professional or current level? Um, Gee, what would happen if we explored together getting some additional skills or trying some networking that might be a little out of your norm? So that's that. And once that started, then I started writing stuff down, and you know,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and here we are.
Well, I guess probably the big question is do you want to do this or not? I think is probably viable, and I think you help them discover that, the other things that they could be doing instead of just sitting on the couch.
I think
That's
so. And and when I look at why I like to focus on seniors, I mean, I think I can help almost anyone. I do some work with the Suffolk University Career Office.
mhm.
I do some job shadowing and mentoring with and for them. But because I haven't retired and because I've been going at a consultant's pace and doing cloud computing and cybersecurity and all the rest, I'm in a I'm in a favorable position to be able to say to a senior, okay, let's run down who you are and what you have. How's your business experience? I like to divide a person's biography into three aspects: general business experience, communication, project management, leadership, all that. Um, Technology. And then the third, and that's everything from collaboration literacy to, how to do some data analysis. And then, of course, the last thing is your sector. What's, what have you spent time in? And there might, and for seniors, happily, sometimes there's two or three answers to that question. But
Mhm.
I hope you're beginning to see already how a conversation can get underway that really is some fun brainstorming.
Well, and who doesn't want to keep making that contribution? I have to think at the end of the day, but knowing what that possibility is, I think is where you come in and you're able to help them identify those things because there's so many things that, as with many things, that they don't know what they don't know. There's that aspect. And how do you, to that end, how do you do that? Do you have workshops? Is it just a one-on-one consultation, or is it both, or all that, or
It's both. I have run seminars in the past, and those we can. I had some help from my grad students. I mentioned Suffolk University Career Office. what we do in those is we take a slide or two or a concept or two, and then get in a 8 to 10 person group and just go around the table 1 minute each. What do you think? Add to this, push back. And it's kind of delightful, actually, if you don't mind me saying. It sounds self-serving, but it's actually a great dynamic.
No, bet.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and what's the other thing is I encourage people more and more to form that personal board. I mean, I'll talk to anyone about networking. I think, as you realize, I actually have my Emplana actually has a course that's approved for reimbursement in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for small businesses. So we're a little bit official, but more fun than that. I want to talk to people about getting out there. Some things they know, the classic
Mhm.
networking, right? The Rotary Club, the Chamber of Commerce. But do you know what? It's also, I have a list in front of me right now: identity, interests, learning, volunteer, labs, stretch. You know, when my accountant friend who's terrified of technology drops into a data analytics meetup, as long as there's no hard events, some pretty good things happen. And what I coach people to do, if they're dropping into something they're not familiar with,
Mhm.
the persona they can wear is, look, I've got a little bit of familiarity. I want to test out what I know and get some advice on how I can learn some more. And I think almost anyone will find that disarming. Um,
Well,
right?
that's gonna, yeah, it's gonna keep you young, keep you engaged, keep you part of the deal, you know. And do, do you find much, I'm just curious, do you find much distinction between men and women in this? Is it both or
No, no. Except for our usual clumsy generalizations, and even that's very, very minor. Not really. I think the operative dynamic is how confident a person. Um, I think some people are very ambitious and have from day one just driven to get to the top or whatever else, and other people, just want to get a job, get a paycheck, and go home. I kind of, at either end of that spectrum, I don't know that I can help a whole lot. You know what I mean? The type A who's, I need a promotion every 18 months, or at the other end, the person who said, I had someone tell me one time they want to change their job. And before I opened my mouth, they said, but I'm not going to take any courses or do anything like that. And I thought, well, wait a minute. So if you exclude those outliers, I think the most important thing, and Jim, you and I talked about this before we started here. There's a very important finding I got from a marketing study I commissioned. I mean, I actually wanted to know more and paid my own money. And I got a really good marketing strategy firm. They ran some focus groups. What was extraordinary to me is that the results that came back from the focus groups was that when people want to get in shape, the New Year's resolution, they think it's perfectly appropriate to hire a trainer. But somehow, when it comes to career and job, I'm supposed to figure it out solo. It's like, I'm not a man or a woman unless I can do this. That, I think, if ever there was a time for collaboration, a personal board, getting different perspectives
sure.
from others, it's when you're trying to think about career. And, somebody I was talking to yesterday who I really admire, a 45-year-old that's a very influential consultant, was saying, yeah, and that personal board, you want some people who really know you. They might not even know what you do for a living, but they can tell you that's too timid, or that's too bold, or wait a minute, you got to think about this. And then you want somebody who's in your sector or knows something about it who can say, this is what you should be watching. And so if you listen to how I'm running through these different perspectives, it's not even essential to me that you come to Emplana. It's much more important that you do this stuff. I'd be happy to help anyone. And I'm in the process of changing the website to have a sprinkle of free first time consultings, because a lot of times when you talk to somebody for 45 minutes, they just need a little bit of shaping and some
Mhm.
ideas, and they're sort of off to the races. And of course, if somebody wants to be a client, that's great. But I think more important is to just accept that it's a good time to ask for help. And what I always tell people is do a small ask. Don't say to someone, get me a job.
Oh,
Say
yeah,
to
yeah.
someone,
And
what do you,
generationally, that's a tough one, isn't it? Getting
it
past that.
is.
It's like everybody is reluctant to take that handout, so to speak. Yeah.
And so I think I want to reframe it. Instead of saying asking a big handout, ask, what do you think I should study? What's the
Yeah,
most interesting your technology you're using in our sector?
there
Who
you
do
go.
you admire as a leader in our in a or a great company in our sector? Those
Mm.
are those are flattering questions, and they're very easy for the person to answer. And I think you can engineer a whole bunch of those. And Jim, I appreciate this whole podcast series you have. I mean, it's so obviously caring, and it makes it easy to offer these things and be in conversation with someone like yourself and offer them to others.
Well, that's the thing, being able to, I think, it gets back to that whole awareness thing, like when I look at my personal journey with my parents and clients and other seniors and all that kind of thing. It's just um, knowing what's possible is not something that's rampant. You really and where to go for that, where to find that, and how to find that. And you know, in those days, the internet wasn't as robust as it is now, but even then, you still have to stand guard and try to find the right thing for the right places. And um, it's a rigor. It's a job. And from your chair, you're able to help people get down that road and um, I applaud you for that because it's something that's certainly needed. And I think um, being able to make that happen has got to be just a blast. I mean, I would think that's just a lot of fun, having
It
that
really
those
is.
kinds of epiphanies for someone who's especially someone who's been doing something all their life and now they're done. And what's next? What's possible to be next? And you really bring that to light.
Well, thank you, Jim. And tell you what, right now, let's you and I spend 2 minutes. Let's act as though you were a client for a moment, okay? And there's very little that's generic. And I'm going to offer the generic part right now, and then it quickly turns into the wonderful collaboration. But the upfront part, I actually sketched out a 5-day diagram one time. And this is real, I think this is the most important for seniors. Avoid going down rabbit holes, right? You can get on the internet, you can just get it. So
Mhm.
you want to be a bit disciplined. So I've organized this little thought process around 5 days. Day one, go back and look at old files, emails, go look for nuggets. And what you're looking for are, I always meant to follow up with that person. You know,
Mhm.
that was a cool company. Or most important of all, come to think of it, I did organize a lot of events. So you start off by, and all of it being disciplined, right? No rabbit holes. Look backwards. Then what you do in day two is you start moving it forward and say, why, why, why am I interested in these things? And then you make your big transition. You start to take those things and say, well, what could I find in the outside world? And this is where your conversation starts and where you might put a little plan about some upcoming network together. My wife bought me a drone, a really good one, like just barely into the kind of pro level a few years ago. And I was an idiot and I let it collect dust for a few years and my family gave me a hard time. And so a few weekends ago, I said, you know what? They're right. And I watched the YouTubes and played around with it. Next thing you know, I've got pictures of my roof and the wife's garden. And one of my friends at church was saying, would you take pictures of my next social event? Now, for my birthday, my wife bought me a book on photography with drones, but she brought me another book that said small businesses that are drone based. And if this isn't just one of a
Oh,
million examples,
yeah.
Isn't that just an absolute hoot?
You're your own testimonial.
I mean, we can explore and we can do it better together. That's the moral of the story. And so this 5 day thing, now what happens as you move into the kind of Wednesday, Thursday. I had a PhD friend who's a professor tell me recently, it's only a 5 day week, Mike. It's okay. That's enough. Some people are really driven. But by Thursday, you want to start saying, okay, I'm actually going to write down and maybe start showing a friend a little bit or something. And by Friday, you want a game plan. You want to say, in the next month, I'm going to do these 3 networking events. And I used the example earlier of getting in shape. I'm sure you've had friends that make the New Year's resolution, and then come February, they're either injured or they're no longer going to the gym. So don't be that person. What you want to do is have put together a modest and sustainable career budget that says, I'm going to look at some skills. I'm going to chat this up and see what I should pursue.
Mhm.
I'm going to do some networking. Some of it may be a little tried and true and familiar. Some of it may be a little less, but even a small monthly budget of activity. And if you're retiring and you got more time, ramp it up. But similar process. Now, I've talked a lot, so let me be quiet for a minute, and please let's let the moderator
No,
react,
no,
direct.
you're doing just fine. I think the having a process like that in itself is enlightening for anybody. Just to know that it's there and to explore those kinds of things is in itself a journey that a lot of folks I think are not aware of. That
Thank you so much,
you
Jim.
can be there
I thank
it's
you. I
one
have
thing
a
to read a book and it's another thing to sit down with somebody like you that's got an agenda that really can help.
well, thank you. But I really do insist that Implana is not the only. Um, you can, if you think about everything we've just talked about in the last 10 or 15 minutes, anybody can do that with people they admire around them.
Mhm.
And if they're purposive and disciplined, happy to have a new client or a drop in at Implana. But I've really been impressed. I've only done a few of these podcasts, but I've been really impressed with how much the hosts care about their audience and constituency.
Well,
And that's where I'm coming from too. I have a day job. I have a great practice. You know what I mean? This is really because I want to give back, and especially in right now, the labor market is brutal.
yeah, yeah. Well, Mike, I really applaud what you're doing. I think it's just great, and um, we'll have all your information in the show notes and narratives and things like that folks will be able to read. But what's the best way for someone to get more information about what it is you're doing?
Well, I'd go to our website, which is emplanacareer.com, and you know, by all means, put in a submit form with a question or whatever else. And I usually have a grad student helping me, but we have day jobs, but we will get back to you. And, we'll follow up and see what you need. If you just want to talk for 20 minutes, that's fine. Something a little more formal or paid, whatever, that's fine too.
Okay.
But I think there's some information on the website, some things that can be downloaded. And hopefully, what we've discussed in this podcast is actually something that people could use to get started on their own.
Well, great. I noticed on your website you got some really smart people there with you, so there's no shortage of that. And uh, I want to thank you
Well,
for being here today. This is a great service you've got, and I look forward to having more people know about it and let us know how that goes.
wonderful stuff, Jim. Thanks so much for having me. And I really appreciate the care you're bringing and that you're putting this whole thing together. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. You're a gift. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Uncommon Knowledge for Seniors. I hope you found the information valuable and inspiring. If you have topics or circumstances you'd like us to address, please let us know. And don't forget to subscribe to our podcast and visit our website. We're at www.uncommonknowledgeforseniors.com for more resources and to schedule a confidential consultation. And until next time, I'm Jim Moran, reminding you to embrace your next chapter with confidence and clarity. Take care.